Something so horrifying happened in my life that I still can't come to terms with it. My best friend Mike vanished without a trace, leaving me in absolute shock. I remember just a few weeks ago we were walking in the park together, and now he's gone, and I feel like something irreversible has happened. It all started when Mike stopped answering calls and messages. At first, I thought he was just busy or didn't feel like talking. But as time went on, his absence began to scare me. I decided to go to his apartment in person to find out what happened. When I arrived, I saw that the door was open. This was very unusual since Mike always made sure the door was locked. The apartment was eerily silent. I found his mobile phone on the table, and the computer was turned on. But the scariest thing was a strange drawing on the wall in the living room that I had never seen before. It looked like some kind of ritual symbol painted in red. I felt a chill run down my spine and decided to contact the police immediately. While waiting for the authorities, I continued to search for any clues about what might have happened to Mike. I found notes where he wrote about his fears, but they didn't provide any indication of what could have led to his disappearance. The police began their investigation but couldn't find any traces of Mike. They suggested he might have left town or just disappeared. But I knew something was wrong. His behavior didn't match his usual self. I started receiving strange emails that seemed alarming. They contained encrypted messages and photos that seemed to depict something mystical. I was shocked when I saw in one of the emails the same symbol that was on Mike's apartment wall. I decided to conduct my own investigation using my skills. I found a place where Mike used to frequent and discovered it was an old abandoned building. I went there hoping to find a clue. When I arrived, I felt that something was wrong. All the doors were locked, but I found an open window. I climbed inside and immediately felt an inexplicable sense of anxiety. Inside, I found old books and records that looked like part of some ritual. But none of this explained why Mike had disappeared. I was on the verge of despair and realized I needed more help. I decided to consult local historians who might know about old legends and local myths. Perhaps some ancient beliefs could explain Mike's disappearance. One historian told me about an ancient cult that practiced rituals using symbols similar to those I had seen in Mike's apartment. This was very disturbing, and I began to think that Mike might have fallen under their influence. I learned that this cult used abandoned buildings for their ceremonies. This could explain why Mike was in such a place that I had found. I decided to continue searching in other similar locations. My attempts to find places where rituals might have taken place became increasingly alarming. I started feeling that someone was watching me, but I couldn't find any evidence. One time, when I returned home late at night, I noticed that someone had left a note by my door. It had the same symbol that I had seen at Mike's place. This confirmed my fears that I was close to uncovering something better left undiscovered. I decided to spend the night in my apartment with all windows and doors locked to avoid falling under the influence of the forces watching me. But even that didn't bring me peace. At night, I heard strange sounds that resembled whispers. The next day, I went to the library to find more information about the rituals described by the historian. I came across a book that described rituals similar to those I had seen in Mike's apartment. The book included information about special dates and places for conducting rituals. This gave me a new clue that I might find something if I visit these places on those special dates. Meanwhile, I continued to receive strange emails. They became more personal and disturbing, and I felt I was getting closer to something dangerous. I learned that the rituals of this cult involved specific ceremonies to transfer the soul to another world. This explained why Mike might have been involved. I was determined to find a way to stop it. My investigation led me to an old cemetery where I found evidence of ritual activities. The graves were scattered with the same symbols I had seen in Mike's apartment. This confirmed my suspicions that the cemetery might have been a ritual site. I learned that the rituals could be connected to a local cult practicing dark arts. This made my investigation even more dangerous, as I realized that this cult might be willing to go to great lengths to protect their secrets. I reached out to people who might know more about this cult. One of them, who had once been part of the organization, told me about their methods and rituals. This helped me understand why Mike might have become their victim. After that, I went to a place where it was said that the most important ceremonies of the cult took place. It was an old church I had visited before. But now, it looked even more ominous. In the church, I found new documents confirming that rituals were conducted for merging souls with other worlds. This confirmed my fears and raised new questions. I began to understand that Mike might have been part of this ritual. At one point, I learned that someone among my close acquaintances might be involved with this cult. This was a heavy blow, as I couldn't believe that someone I knew could be involved in this horror. My suspicions were confirmed when I found evidence that one of my old friends was a member of the cult. I was shocked, and this complicated my investigation. I felt that now my own life was in danger. I started receiving threats from unknown people who told me that if I didn't stop the investigation, my fate would be the same as Mike's. This further strengthened my resolve to find the truth. I continued to track suspicious individuals and gather information about the cult. My determination to find answers was so strong that I was willing to risk everything, even my own life. After several weeks of investigation, I finally found the place where the main ritual was taking place. It was an old underground vault long forgotten. I knew this might be my last chance to learn the truth. When I entered the vault, I felt a powerful pressure that seemed to engulf me. All the signs and symbols I had seen before were now surrounded by darkness. I realized I was approaching the center of this nightmare. I found an old book in the vault that described the rituals and ceremonies. It confirmed all my fears that Mike had become part of a grand ritual for merging with another world. I also found traces that someone else had been there, and I felt that this might not be the end. I needed to find a way to stop it to save Mike and myself. My attempts to stop the ritual proved futile. I realized that part of the ritual was already complete, and Mike might have already become part of something else. I was in despair when I understood that everything might be in vain. With each new discovery, my fears grew larger. I felt that I was surrounded by unknown forces, and my efforts to investigate led to new and terrifying horrors. My last actions led to me being under threat. I received messages from unknown individuals stating that I was now part of the ritual and that I wouldn't be able to escape. I began to doubt my abilities and understanding. The mystical phenomena became so intense that I felt like I was in an unending nightmare. I didn't know how to escape this cycle. I continued to fight and seek help from those who might know more about these rituals. But each time I got closer to the truth, I faced new threats. After long and exhausting searches, I finally found a way to stop the ritual. But for this, I had to risk everything and take a final step. I decided to perform a final ritual that I believed could stop all of this. But it was extremely dangerous, and I knew my chances of success were slim. Having gathered all the necessary items, I began preparing for the final ceremony. I held the ritual objects that were supposed to help complete this horrifying process. Fear and anxiety overwhelmed me, but I knew I had to do it since there was no alternative. As an ordinary guy who found himself in a situation beyond my understanding, it seemed to me that this was my only chance to correct everything that had happened. As I began the ritual, I immediately felt that something was going wrong. The darkness around me grew denser, and the fear that I couldn't handle this alone took hold. My mind began to wander in chaos, and my attempts to control the situation became increasingly hopeless. The feelings of hopelessness and anxiety were so intense that I began to doubt everything I knew about this situation. As an ordinary Reddit user, I tried to find answers to questions that seemed unsolvable. My mind was on the brink of breaking down as I saw the ritual not producing the desired results. The forces I was trying to control began to control me. My consciousness plunged into darkness, and with each passing minute, I realized that the situation had become much worse than I could imagine. I, an ordinary guy from Reddit, was trapped in a mystical nightmare that wouldn't release me for a moment. It soon became clear that the ritual was part of a larger plan that exceeded my understanding. I was trapped, and my efforts to save Mike became increasingly futile. The sense of despair filled me, and I couldn't understand how an ordinary Reddit user ended up in such a complex situation. Faith in success diminished, and my efforts seemed only to be a part of the darkness. At this point, I received a new message confirming that Mike had already become part of something else. The feeling of defeat and hopelessness was overwhelming. I realized that my attempt to save Mike might have been in vain. My story as an ordinary Reddit user became darker and darker, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was forever trapped in this nightmare. The mystical phenomena that pursued me grew more intense, and I felt that there was no way out. The ritual reached its climax, and I had to confront the final stage. The darkness surrounding me became almost palpable. I had to face the ultimate horror to understand the real truth. In the end, I had to make a fateful decision: to risk everything in an attempt to change the situation or resign and accept my fate. I was on the verge of giving up, but something deep inside pushed me to fight to the end. I continued to struggle, hoping that my actions would bring some light to this darkness. Despite all my efforts, the situation continued to spiral out of control. The mystical phenomena seemed to be reaching their peak, and I felt that my own existence was being threatened. The final decision was close, and I realized that my life and Mike's might be at stake. My last actions became desperate as I tried to find a solution to this complex and terrifying situation. But my attempts seemed increasingly futile, and I was sinking into the abyss of despair. The darkness surrounded me completely, and I felt that I had lost all hope. My story as an ordinary Reddit user became a symbol of hopelessness and despair in a world where reality and mysticism blended into one.